I'm interested to learn more about the company because I think you guys have a unique business model in regards to trying to commercialize using cold therapy, and I find it very fascinating. But I guess I kind of wanted to start in the origins of the company, and your background stems from exercise science and a little bit of physical therapy, and I'm a physical therapist myself, so I'm curious to know kind of how did you start to transition over from a career in PT and exercise to this kind of scaling business of cryotherapy.
Yeah, so it was actually it's quite interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day about the transitions in life and how one path could lead to another one. You can't really be scared of change. You just have to kind of roll with the evolution of what life presents you. And for me, I've always loved wellness, whatever that meant, right? Whether it was a sport, whether it was fitness, whether it was gym related, food, anything along that route. And it was interesting. I never really thought about the recovery or rehabilitation side of wellness, right? I always thought about what was on the field, right? Not what was off the field. And the more and more in tune I got with exercise science, the more that I realized, rehabilitation, even if it's not from an injury, but just rehabbing properly, recovering properly, that's where the magic happened. And it kind of hit me when I was in college one day, and I knew the science of this, but I guess I just never really thought about it. I remember one of my personal training coaches saying, "Hey, Kyle, you got to focus on what you're eating and drinking and sleeping to make sure you build muscle." And it kind of just, it hit me in the face. And I remembered, you don't build muscle in the gym, you build muscle out of the gym, right? You actually do the opposite in the gym. You tear apart muscle, and how that builds back and how that grows is what you do outside of the gym. And so same thing goes into recovery. Everything that you do outside of your activity gets you to be better for that activity. So that kind of led me into doing more research around physical therapy itself and rehab and recovery. And I remember I was trying to find my way through college. I'll just put it that way. And I remember reading an article and it was the top 5 rewarding career fields at that time. And I think it was 2009, 2010. Gosh, I'm feeling old saying that. And it was, I think the second one on the list was PT. It was physical therapy. And they began to read in the article, or they began to talk in the article as I was reading it, that it was because you were the person that literally took somebody that was 90-year-old senior citizen that had pain daily and couldn't play on the ground with their grandkids, right? And you were able to do that. So they didn't give an example of some major car accident and hip replacement. It was just like the common person wanting to do something that your body should be capable of doing, right? And that hit me. It hit me right in the heart, man. And I remember that's when my passion took over for, hey, I want to go into PT school. I want to be able to help people live longer, pain-free lives. And then I got a job at a PT clinic when I was doing some outpatient hours, and stumbled across a patient who was talking about cryotherapy. And I'll make a long story short, but I just dug into the research. I dug into the science. And this was a couple years later. This is probably 2011, 2012. And understanding that it was science-based and this wasn't a fad. They've been doing this, overseas for, decades at this point. And we're always late to get stuff here in the States, but yeah, it just consumed my entire life. It consumed my entire fascination around recovery.
I think the idea of focusing on recovery is interesting because I think a lot of guys out of PT school or even like exercise science, if they don't want to be a clinician or if they don't want to focus on something, usually the first thing to think of is I'm going to open a gym. Like I'm going to do a gym. I'm going to be a
That
personal
was me.
trainer. Right. But you focused on this other aspect, which was recovery, which I think is really crucial. And I guess it seems like there's a wave now more recently about cryotherapy and just like the whole, I mean, science behind it. And I guess maybe for those who don't understand, I guess, what are the benefits of cryotherapy?
Yeah, that's honestly what sucked me in the most. When I started to look at the research, the number one benefit of cryo is to reduce the inflammation inside the body. So they actually build cryo chambers now where it's like a walk-in room. A couple people can fit in there. They're even building rooms that are the size of rooms. I mean, we're talking 10 by 10 feet. You could have an entire football team or an entire group of people go in and cryo at the same time. So the industry has evolved so much. And what people don't realize is, number one, I'll tell you right now, I hate the cold. I do not. It's the number one feedback I get from people before they do it is, "Oh, Kyle, I hate the cold." And I said, "I know, I do too. That's why I live in Houston, Texas."
Yep.
But it's so interesting. I don't know of any wellness modality on the planet that is 3 minutes in length. So an average cryo session is about 3 minutes long. I don't know of anything on the planet that is that short of a time frame. So when you talk about convenience, when you talk about ease of use, right? We're living this fast-paced lifestyle. We want everything to be now. We want everything to be convenient. We live in that Amazon life, right? We order something from China, we want it here in the morning.
Yep.
So for me on the business side, I looked at that and I said, gosh, if we could wrap this modality in a retail setting and provide this to people, that's a slam dunk, right? And then I looked at it from the consumer standpoint as I was personally doing cryotherapy, and I thought, this is so easy. If I can just walk in, I really don't need an appointment because it's so fast. I mean, businesses like ours are definitely pushing towards like more appointment based, but we do allow walk-ins. But from the consumer side, I could do this on the way to work. I could do this during my lunch break, right? I mean, it's amazing how quick the delivery is on it and how many benefits come from it. So yeah, it's for me, it's the cold isn't as bad as you think it would be. When you hear the -150, -200 Fahrenheit temperatures, it's actually just the air around you. Most people correlate cold to ice, which is a penetrating, bone-chilling cold. That's not what this is at all. It's a dry cold. I always tell people it's cold, but it's comfortable.
Interesting. Well, I guess describe the difference, I guess, or even like walk us through the process of like getting cryotherapy. Like when you walk into your clinic, I know you specialize in other areas as well, and you've expanded beyond the idea of cryo as well. But I guess coming into the clinic or coming into your business, I guess, like what is a typical experience that you want to walk somebody through?
Yeah, so first time guests, we always give a tour. That's actually just part of the business model itself is cryo, along with a lot of our services, are new to the industry, right? They're new to society. And so for us, we want people to be educated about what we have. I think, understanding what we do and what it can do for you, that is the tool. That is the power of what we offer in our business model. And so when a guest comes in for the first time, we ask one major thing. Number one, where'd you hear about us, right? We want to understand where people are finding out about what ICryo is. Secondly, before we even do any type of a sales pitch or whatever you want to call it to buy a membership or a package, we give them about a 5 to 7 minute tour of the entire facility. So we go one by one at each modality. We explain what it is. We give a couple cliff notes around how it is administered, and then we give a couple of the benefits that they may not know about. And I think that's important. Is if we stop by the whole body cryo chamber, you're already going to know this helps with pain. You're already going to know, this is for athletic recovery, because that's what a lot of people in the States see it as. But you're not going to know it helps with anxiety. You're not going to know it helps with sleep. You're not going to know it helps with stress, right? So we try to point out some key benefits of each modality that you may not really know about if you were to do some research. So for us, it's giving the tour, it's giving people that brief explanation of each service, it's getting them educated around what they're going to do. Then after that tour, you'd be amazed how people's minds transition from, well, hold on, I was going to do this service when I walked in the door, but these two other modalities that you offer and what you explain to me, that's actually what I need, right? Yeah. So it's interesting to see them educate themselves during that process. And for the first time sessions, we'll lump a couple services into like a discounted package for people. So I always explain, I said, look, we offer 10 different services in our business. Come in and do, we'll discount a 3-pack for you, right? If you want to do 3 different services today, or today and tomorrow, whatever that may be, I always recommend people trying a few things. Commit to that, because you may find out that another service is a little bit more beneficial for you. So for me, it's where'd you come from? We want to know where you came from. And then 2, giving them that tour, getting them to understand what we actually do and what we can do to help them.
Yeah. And, I saw some of the videos as well, and they're really interesting. And you walk in, you got all this like smoke coming out, and you walk into this giant chamber and you're putting on the masks and stuff. And I guess, I haven't seen people wearing, some protective gear when they go into like an ice bath, so to speak, other than obviously like some clothes, of course. But I suppose, is there like some benefit for the mask? I guess, are there things that you should be like for your first time coming in that you should be kind of aware of, that when you're stepping into this tub of hot or rather cold air, that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so I get that all the time. What do I need to prep with? Is there any prep work that needs to be done? We provide everything at our location. So if you were to come in and do a cryo session, you'd walk up off the street in your gym clothes or your work clothes, whatever it may be. We have dressing rooms inside all of our facilities. So we'd issue you a dressing room. When you walk into the actual chamber, you're wearing socks that we provide. And yes, we wash them every day. You're going to wear slippers as well. So you're going to double cover the feet because it's a less meatier part of the body, right? We also do that for the hands. So we give you gloves to cover up the hands. Once again, just a less meatier part of the body, more prone to being cold faster, right? More aggressive in the cold. We do provide sports bras for women to cover up the breasts. And then we do provide basketball shorts for men and women of all different sizes. Once again, to cover up the private parts, the less meatier parts of the body. And then just for a comfort type sake, you really don't need to do this, but it makes it definitely more comfortable. We provide beanies for people that don't have hair like I do, just to kind of keep your scalp a little bit more colder during the session. And once again, it helps cover the ears, which is the less meatier part of the body. And then we do issue a mask, and there's really no intent behind the mask other than just to help protect the trachea, the esophagus. When you're breathing in super cold air, it tends to be a little uncomfortable, right? It's definitely not something. So it's more of just easing the session for people. But yeah, other than that, we want to come into as much skin contact with the cold as possible. So that's why we only use undergarments that cover little bits of area.
Now, in comparing like getting into like an ice bath versus like getting cold, like being surrounded by cold air, I guess, are there differences like research wise? Are there differences benefits wise? I guess when you were thinking about building up the company, I mean, I can imagine just having a bunch of ice baths and just replenishing the ice, but instead you have some of these like very large like tube structures that people can go in. And so I guess, what's the science behind that?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you mentioned that. Most people think ice bath, right? Most people think, I remember doing it when I was in college. Me and, four of my players after practice or whatever, we'd hop in ice baths and that's how you recover. Well, realistically, the ice is only doing so much. There's actually no research on how long you should do ice for. So if me and you were to walk into a doctor's office or a clinic or rehab center, they'd say, all right, do 15 minutes ice on your knee because you had a knee injury. Well, I mean, realistically, your recovery time could be 12 minutes. Mine could be 19 minutes. If you do ice for even a minute too long, you're actually starting to damage the tissue. So you actually do the adverse effect of recovery. You start to damage that process. And really, you're just numbing pain sensors. So it's almost like a Band-Aid approach. Yes, so you reduce an inflammation in an idea. Yeah, you are. But realistically, we don't really need to penetrate the skin to do that. And so that's what this scientist from Japan who created the first prototype of the cryo chamber back in the 70s, he figured that out. He figured out we don't need to cool the actual core temperature and past the adipose tissue of the skin and the body. We just need to cool the surface down and let the body provide a systemic reaction. So what I thought it was interesting as people look more into cryotherapy, we're looking to do one thing. We're looking to actually trigger the vagus nerve on the back of the neck.
What is that for people who don't know?
Yeah, so the vagus nerve is the largest central communication nerve from the head to the rest of the body. I think it controls about 12 of the largest communication channels. So it is a very, very important nerve in the body. Well, doing that, if you do some research, the number one stimulator of the vagus nerve is cold therapy. So if we can trigger that, it's going to do one of two things during a cryo session. It's either going to provide a reaction to the parasympathetic nervous system, or it's going to provide a reaction to the sympathetic nervous system. So in layman's terms, you're either going to have a fight or flight response, and you're going to get some good energy components. When you wake up in the morning from sleep, that system kicks in, that fight or flight response to get you to be awake, get you to be alert. Endorphins start rushing, right? It's that alertness. Now, the exact opposite happens when you fall asleep at night, right? You go into that rest or digest mode, which is basically a lot of serotonin, a lot of melatonin, things to get you relaxed and to feel in a sedative state to go to sleep. So it's interesting to see when people do cryotherapy, you could have somebody that just gets an energy kick. It's almost like a pre-workout and they're high on life and they're ready to go. Or you could get somebody like me to where it shuts me down, right? It definitely, it gives me almost like a runner's high, almost where it's got me at a calm state. So it's such a powerful thing, your body, when I say that, that all you have to do is get it to react a certain way and it'll work properly. It'll work like it's designed to. So it's interesting when people ask me what benefits can I get from cryo. I say, man, it could be all over the spectrum here. So.
Yeah, and well, I'm wondering if like time is a specific element to that. And I guess, are you, as people come in maybe for regular visits, are you maybe timing them? Are you trying to like personalize their experience with their cryotherapy? Because again, like you said, like I may need 12 minutes, you may need like 8 minutes, or vice versa. And so as people are coming in, are you keeping like a profile of like additional information so that way people can stay on top of it and figure out what's best for them?
We do. So it's actually controlled. So we can control the fan speeds inside the chambers. We can control the time inside the chamber. The very first session. So each chamber on the market, roughly across the world, has about 4 different levels of cold, right? You have a beginner, you have an intermediate, you have like a pro, you have like a cryo pro. So there's 4 different levels of cold, and obviously it can range from negative 125 Fahrenheit all the way to negative 200 Fahrenheit. We can control those temperatures. So what we do for every first guest is we put them in on beginner level. I don't care how tough you think you are, how macho of a guy that comes in, which, to be honest, the bigger guys are actually the wimpier ones.
Yeah.
We always start everybody off at beginner, and then we actually check skin temperature with a temperature gun before and after their session. So if you look at some of the research that dates back in the 80s, 30 to a 50 degree skin temperature drop is where we want to be. That's where we're really triggering that systemic reaction inside the body. So we check before they hop in the first session. We put them on beginner. We measure their skin temperature when they hop out, and based off of that drop, let's say they get a 22 degree drop in skin temp. We're not within that 30 to 50 degree range. We'll say, okay, look, next time let's bump it up to intermediate, or next time let's bump it up to pro, right? Something a little bit colder to help get that skin temperature down a little bit more. So it has nothing to do with how old you are, your ethnicity, your male, female. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's all about skin sensitivity. If we can get your skin to drop to a specific temperature during that 3-minute time frame, we know we're getting that reaction that we're looking for.
And is it getting that temperature down faster at like even lower is what creates more effect? I guess, like what is the reason behind dropping the temperature farther and lower and like progressing through these levels of cold? Because I hate the cold as well. And so I'm like, if I could stay at like 50 degrees, I'm going to stay right there,
Yeah. So I break it down in a terminology of kind of like a hypothermic state. So imagine you're at the top of Mount Everest, right? And you're stuck there, you're stranded, and you go into hypothermia, right? When your body reaches a state of survival mode in an instance, and that's kind of what the body's experiencing during cryo, it feels like it's in a survival mode. Your responses kick on in a much different way. Your body operates differently. So the blood is extracted from the extremities, especially in a cold fashion, right? When you hit that hypothermic state, and it's rushed to the core. It's rushed to the core for several reasons. But one big thing that happens during that process is it's thinking, I can live without my limbs, right? We have amputees around the planet right now. So people living without their arms and legs, but your body knows it can't live without its vital organs. So it almost goes into a survival mode to save itself, right? That's essentially in a very simplistic way of saying that's what's happening during cryo. The blood, your body thinks you're going into survival mode. It basically checks off every other box it possibly can. It rushes the blood from the extremities to the core. And it's amazing when you hop out of the chamber, how invigorating when you have that enriched blood, it just shoot back out to your extremities. It's such an invigorating feeling. I always explain to people, you don't do cardio for the actual cardio session itself, right? You do it for the benefits after. Very similar to cryo. I mean, during cryo, Do we love sitting in that cold chamber? We don't.
No.
3 minutes goes by like that. You hop out, and the way you feel immediately, it's not a delayed effect. It's not 8 hours later you're going to start to feel something. It's immediately. So it's awesome for people to get that reassurance right when they hop out of the chamber of, wow, okay, this is working now.
Yeah, and part of that too is like just doing difficult things, right? Like we don't you don't do cardio because you enjoy doing cardio most of the time. You do it because the after effects and the things that are going to be benefit for it. And I'm assuming cryo is the same way in that you're looking for that added benefit after. And we talked about how like everyone has a different response to cryo. Do you recommend people getting cryotherapy after like a workout? Do you recommend getting it before? Do you recommend just like randomly throughout the day? I suppose, the school of thought is like, okay, I'm gonna do a hard workout and then I'm gonna do an ice bath or, cold therapy. I guess, what is your thoughts on that? And what have you found to be more successful?
So because we're finding that cryo is a lot more than just a physical recovery type of service to do for yourself, I've always told people when you do cryo for the first time, try to commit to a month of a package or a month of a membership of some sort, and go as many times during that first month as possible. It's going to show you two things that I think are very important. Number one, it's going to show you how often can you actually do this in your lifestyle, right? Like you got jobs, you got kids, you got, school on the weekends, whatever it may be. How many times could you fit this in a month in your life, right? That's going to tell you what you should actually start purchasing in the future. Well, the second thing it's going to show you is what you get from cryo, right? So the question of, well, what is it going to do for me? Or should I do this in the morning? Should I do it pre or post workout? Do it off and on throughout that month. Do some sessions in the morning, do some during the day, do some before workout, do some after workout. Figure out what this is going to be like in your life, right? So it's funny when I train some of our staff to deliver it that way, and a guest responds and say, "Oh, you're just trying to get me on a package, and you're trying to get me on this unlimited thing to get more money out of me." And really, it's the exact opposite. I'm trying to get you to spend your money the right way.
Right.
I want you to understand what cryo does for you. So your purchasing is educational, right? It's not you're just guessing at something and wasting money.
Yeah, and certainly there's a lot of ways you can spend money on recovery. I think there's a lot of people out there trying to get people to spend money on interesting things. And having a background in PT, I'm assuming you understand some of the you can see some of the gimmicks that sometimes people come out with. You're like, I'm not really sure you should be investing a lot of time in doing that one thing. But I think it's fascinating that I think people are able to develop a relationship with the people at your company and the ability to continually do it. And I guess long term, what are some of the benefits? Maybe I want to get on the topic of anxiety and like depression and other things shortly, but I guess for long term, we were talking short term. Long term, what are some of the benefits over time that you've seen that for people who stay with cryotherapy, what do they find success with?
So it's been really across the board. I think what's been interesting is when people start to do cryo on a regular basis, it's almost like when you start doing something for so long, you don't think it works anymore, right? You just become adapted to it. And so we have a ton of people, and it's hilarious. We have a lot of people, they'll do cryo for several weeks or several months, or I've even had people that have been with me since the beginning for 10 years. I still have some of my original members. And it's funny, they'll go a few weeks and say, man, Kai, I don't feel like this is working anymore. Or, I become immune to it, or, I'm tolerant to the cold, this, that, and the other. And I say, well, look, let's put your membership on pause for a month. And if you still feel that way, you can cancel it at the end of the month. If not, which I know in my head you'll be back, we'll activate your membership back up. It's not even 48 hours. And they're giving us a call like, oh man, you weren't lying. I'm sleeping terrible. I've got my knee pain again. And I have to remind people it's a therapy, cryotherapy. So it's something that should be continuously done. It's not something to where it's a cure-all, right? I try to tell people it's not a curing machine. It's a mechanism to aid some of the stuff that you're dealing with through life. And that's why in our business model, we actually call cryotherapy as one of our lifestyle services. It's something to where we try to preach to our guests that this is a lifestyle-based service. This should be done continuously. So I think that's probably the most interesting thing that I see long-term is people understand that this is something that they do need. It's not something that's a want when you really start to gravitate towards it. But as far as the benefit side of thing, I think it's interesting that people do come in for one purpose, but they end up doing cryo for something completely different.
Mm.
Most of the time, people come in because they're injured or they have, back pain or knee pain or, whatever it may be. And then as they start doing cryo, they're like, man, I'm actually doing this for my sleep now, or I'm doing this for mental clarity. I mean, me personally, I continue doing cryo after my first few weeks of doing it because of my sleep. One of the biggest benefits I personally get from cryo is sleep. I know when I don't go with cryo for, 3-ish, 4-ish days that I start to get really restless. So like I said, from the benefit side, it's interesting to see people transition of why they do cryo.
Yeah, when it comes to sleep, thermal regulation is huge. I mean, more research is being done in the idea of like thermal regulation for sleep. In addition to, there's a lot of wearables now, like Whoop straps or like Apple, watches where they're monitoring temperature in order for you to kind of figure out like, are you recovering well? Are you, doing the things that you're supposed to do? And I think a big part of that, and probably more of the future, is going to be seeing that people are going to be utilizing, temperature regulation to help monitor and navigate pain or injuries, maybe not to resolve the issue like you said, but to help manage and deal with some of the issues for whatever personal reason it may be. And I guess like when we're talking about like mechanisms, are we, I know it decreases inflammation, and then you said earlier that it kind of maybe like even like decreases the sensation of pain, but I guess how does it help manage pain? Is it just like from the inflammation side of things? Is it managing it from, because it's triggering that vagus nerve and it's calming things down like parasympathetically? I guess like what is mechanistically doing to help aid pain and keep away certain ailments?
I think it's all the above of what you just stated. I really think it is triggering that systemic reaction inside the body. One of the things that I always hated when we would go through exercise science classes or my PT classes, or being actually in the field in some of these clinics that I worked at. I mean, I struggled with an ice pack. I struggled with, putting a little thing of ice on an area. For me, knowing that when the body gets a systemic reaction and it works as one, you get 100 times more benefit rather than if it was placed on one part of the body. So we actually have I call it the baby brother of the machine. We actually have a smaller machine inside of our centers. It has the same cold technology, but it ports out to a hose and we can treat a specific area of the body. So
Hmm.
we can do a spot treatment on an ankle. We can do a spot treatment on an elbow. We bought that machine because some people just are like, I don't want to get in the chamber today. I'd rather do a spot treatment. But I always remind these people, your body works in unison. Your body works as one. So when we can get the entire body encapsulated, whether it's cold therapy, heat therapy, light therapy, everything that I believe we should be doing from a therapeutic standpoint should revolve the whole body. You probably know back from PT days, if I came in and I had back pain, well, 9 times out of 10, I wasn't looking at the back. The origination of where the pain's coming from, it could be a referred pain. It could be coming from hip issues. It could be coming from shoulder issues. It could be coming from core strength or abdominal problems. I mean, a lot of the times people try to treat where it's actually hurting or where you're feeling it, but it could be a referred pain from somewhere completely else in the body. So for me, getting that systemic reaction in an entire cryo chamber, that's where that comes in. Circulation comes into play. You have cognitive ability to notice in certain areas of the body where things are really happening. So for me, I think you nailed it on the head. The two biggest things we're looking for: reducing inflammation, which obviously increasing circulation would help in that same aspect. But then triggering that response in the vagus nerve. And at the end of the day, your body's going to work in unison to work as one. And I think that's the most powerful thing about the body.
Yeah, I think that's something that's interesting thought. I mean, I don't really use ice to begin with, but when we think about just putting on local effects of ice, I'm wondering like, is this doing what it's supposed to do? Like, do we need a global effect in order for us to like see like max benefit? And I guess research wise, is there benefit over using full body versus just like local effects in regards to like
Oh,
putting ice on an ankle? Like, because I think that'd be huge, because if PTs are just continually putting ice on an ankle, ice on a knee, it's like, well, let's stop doing that. Let's actually get them like in a ice, something that completely encases their whole body.
And that's why you see, I mean, now if you go in their PT clinics, chiropractic facilities, there are a lot of self-owned businesses from a clinic standpoint that have adopted whole body cryo chambers. Cryo chambers themselves are a little expensive. What they've done is there's kind of like a mid-level way of doing cryo. They have what they call cryo saunas. You walk in, it's everything but the head is out, sticking outside of the chamber. I try not to promote those because they're very unsafe opposed to doing an actual walk-in chamber. The walk-in chambers are 10 times safer. You get 10 times the benefits in my mind, but
In what way is it not safe? I'm just curious.
so they actually use liquid nitrogen to supercool the chamber down. Liquid nitrogen boils at negative 320 degrees. So with nitrogen actually coming into the chamber, there's been cases of people getting burned. They call them chilblains, where it's kind of like a nitrogen burn, and it's not safe. And then obviously breathing in nitrogen is not good for you, 100% of it at least. So you have cases where people pass out, and it's not a safe experience. Well, with cryo chambers, you've got several companies in the world where they're 100% electrically powered. So no nitrogen, it's all electricity based. Think of it like a super souped up commercial refrigerator that you walk into, right? These companies have basically formulated their proprietary souped up version of Freon, right? And it's a closed loop system, just like a commercial freezer, but they're getting these chambers down to, negative 150, negative 175 degrees, which is getting that response that we need. So yeah, for me, it's interesting to see how the industry's got 10 times safer, but you still have people that have, personal owned businesses that can't afford $100,000 cryo chamber, right? So they look for something a little bit more mid-level, and that's where the cryo saunas come into play.
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of global effects, and especially just like physical injuries, or if it's like inflammation, say for like arthritis and stuff. But you had mentioned that it also helps with anxiety and depression. I guess, like, what are some case studies, or I guess people that have found success using cryotherapy to help manage some of those mental issues?
Yeah, we actually have a few. I try to provide as much literature to the public as possible. We're actually revamping our entire website right now and having a studies page. We have one on there that we've put a lot of clinical studies for cryo on our website, so people can see the research and the due diligence behind it. But there are so many other articles out there. Me and a colleague of mine from Germany over the summer, we're actually compiling all of the cryo studies that have ever been done before. Is alarming. There are way more than I thought. I mean, not just dozens, but hundreds and hundreds of articles. So I would actually tell people that are listening to this, you can see some entry-level articles on our website at ICryo.com, but we're going to revamp the website this next year and put a good majority of the research that's out there. But if you look at it, when you increase the serotonin levels in the body, when you release endorphins, when you have a lot of these chemical responses inside the body, you're obviously going to do a positive or a negative thing, right? One or two things are going to happen. You're not staying neutral. So for us, when you release, and I'll call them the feel-good vibes, because those are kind of the layman's terms for these chemicals that are released. But when you release the feel-good vibes in the body, it's amazing how you think clearer, right? You think more positive. You don't have the brain fog that you would normally have. You feel more alert. And to me, you talk about the things that you feel more alert, you feel more clear. The brain fog isn't there. That goes directly into mood enhancement, right? How you feel and operate during the day. And I correlate that. I even go down a rabbit hole, and I'll say that goes directly to confidence. So the way that you're thinking, the way that you're operating, the way that you function mentally, that's what bolsters your confidence throughout the day, right? And bolsters your positivity. So for me, it's when you're walking around through the day and you feel better, right? You naturally just feel good, right? You're smiling, you're vibrant. That just directly correlates to your personality through the day. So it's interesting to see how, in my mind, one thing can happen in the body that trickles to something else that happens in the rest of your body. And it trickles to an outward facing side of how people actually see and view you and feel your energy. So to me, cryo is way more impactful, and not just cryo, but anything that can provide that type of a reaction. It goes on way more levels than just one little thing that's happening inside the body.
Even like exercise, right? Like when you exercise, you create this huge change in endorphins, and when you do a hard activity, you release the serotonin, and you get this added benefit of just being like, man, I did that shit. That was great. I feel a lot better today.
It's hilarious. When I get done with a workout, I feel 10 times better than I did the rest of the day. It's
Yeah.
just, you're 100% right. I mean, just some of those things that really create a change inside of your body, you feel that, and it resonates for a while. So
Yeah, and certainly it's not the end solution to anxiety and depression, but certainly can be, like you said, perhaps like a change in path or a spark in a different direction where you're like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's, changing the body state and, changing the chemical makeup of what my body's doing on a day-to-day basis is leading me in the right direction and helping me to maybe that'll allow you to like make that appointment with a doctor that you need to go see to help like manage your anxiety, or like maybe it'll allow you to start thinking about a different like career path that like you've been depressed about or something like that. Just changing direction from something that you're doing else, like that you didn't like or enjoy doing.
yep. And that's, I mean, once again, you nailed it on the head. It's something to where you feel that sensation, but it doesn't last forever, right? It's something to where it's a true lifestyle that you have to live. So when you're working out, you don't work out once and you're good for the rest of your life, right? You're not even good for the rest of the week.
Yeah,
So
right.
if you're doing something from a wellness perspective, you have to go into it with the mindset of, this is how I'm going to live, right? I'm going to work out once to 3 times a week and maintain that, right? It's maintenance. I'm not trying to lose anything or gain anything, but I'm trying to maintain something healthy. I'm gonna have, 2 cheat meals a week and not 7 every day, right? So just maintaining good quality of balance in your life. And the same thing goes for recovery. Look, I tell people, I'm not asking you to do what I do and cryo 7 days a week, but hey, come in 1 to 3 times a week, right? Have that maintenance behind what you're thinking throughout the day. Don't try to overdo something and just stress yourself out, right? Do something that meets your needs, that meets what you can offer yourself during your week's time frame, and just provide some balance in your life.
Yeah, and I love that one thing that you guys that was I found spectacular that you do is you guys have like a chief medical officer. You guys have like a panel of doctors who are analyzing and figuring out like what are the best courses for the business and things to move forward for. And I guess like what was the motivation for getting doctors and physicians involved in regards to cryo?
I think just always being innovative, always staying ahead of the curve. Medicine, wellness, these things just move at such a fast pace. I mean, when a wellness modality comes out, there's already 5 other versions being made, right? It's already obsolete. When medication or a way of treating comes out, they're already thinking 10, 15 years ahead of how that's going to change. So for me, I wanted to have a panel, a board of physicians that brought different things to the table, right? Some could be anti-aging specialized, some could be emergency medicine specialized. I mean, I wanted a variety of physicians that we could put on a panel to always be innovative, always thinking of what is a better way to do this, right? I don't ever think I want to think that our business model today is the same business model it's going to be in 10 years, because the industries are changing. We're learning a lot, especially our hyper accelerated knowledge behind the COVID era,
Yeah.
right? So understanding immune system, understanding preventative methods. COVID, when it first hit, it struck the entire globe. But I think it did one amazing thing, is it got people to pay more attention to their health. Which I thought was a huge thing. I mean, I've been preaching that my entire life, is to be preventative, be proactive, not reactive, right? And yeah, did some very healthy people catch COVID? They did, right? But I think the more preventative you can be around it, the better chance of a better quality of life, and a reaction to when some of these things happen would just be easier for that type of person. So for me, yeah, it's been amazing to watch the shift in so many people paying attention to their health now.
Yeah. And I guess like what are some of the insights that some of these doctors are recommending in regards to just like immune function boosting? You also said anti-aging. I guess like what are some of the other aspects that perhaps that they're thinking that will be benefits of ICryo and other things that you guys are working on?
Yeah, so we definitely lump our mindset into 4 different categories. So we have pain management and inflammation. That's kind of our pain category, right? We have our beauty and anti-aging, and we kind of lump weight loss into that as well. We do a few weight loss components in our business, so kind of that aesthetics category. Then you have your sports performance and athletic recovery, so gearing towards the athlete, right? And it could be the athlete on the football field, it could be the athlete cheerleader, it could be the gymnast, just kind of that overall athletic person. And then we have just general wellness. So in our general wellness category, that's where we kind of lump in your autoimmune issues, whether it be fibromyalgia, whether it be psoriasis, kind of like the daily issues that somebody could deal with. And like I said, it's just a general wellness category. So within those four categories, we try to cater physicians when we do tours inside of our centers, when we look at services to bring into the business model, where does it fit in one of those four categories? So we can do a few things. Number one, educate properly. Number two, making sure that we have the right marketing material to support these certain things. And number three, making sure that we have people on our med team that are doing the research to understand these certain modalities within these categories.
And do you guys have any limitations on people who can do ICryo? I mean, it seems like it's very broad and anyone of any age can get in there, but I guess is there like a health screen where you're like, well, we're not 100% sure, maybe you should get cleared by your doctor before you go in?
Yeah, we actually, we have more than just one chief medical officer. We have a series of physicians across the nation that support our business model. And we've actually gone so far into, if you were to look at us from the outside facing in, you would think, we're a retail wellness concept. But from a regulatory standpoint, we've actually classified our business model as a medical services model. So on paper, we're 100% medical. So if a medical board were to come in and look at ICryo, it'd be just like a medical facility. But we never want to look that way, right? I never wanted to be a clinic per se. I wanted to be a wellness center. So for us, we operate at the highest standard possible when it comes to safety, when it comes to the law of medicine. We're viewed that way. We're viewed as a medical facility. So we actually do telemedicine visits with our physicians. So when they come in, if they're wanting an IV, if they're wanting a vitamin shot, if they're wanting a little bit more consulting around their wellness journey, we actually set up a telemedicine consult. They can speak directly to one of our physicians. So we become a little bit more engaging on not just a customized approach of giving people what they really need and not just selling them something to make money. But then second to that, we make sure that we do have like medical clearance to do some of these things. We don't want to administer an IV to somebody just because we want to sell them, $175 IV for no reason. We want to make sure they speak to a physician and get that almost like a prescription write-off, right? They're writing a script right then and there.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if like, perhaps even like you can get a prescription, like like, I'm wondering like, is there perhaps a movement or even like the idea to move towards like insurance companies covering some eye cryo costs? Because if it's helping aiding in pain, helping with function, I mean, it's similar in that it's like the way that a PT does things. And so I suppose, do you think that maybe in the future that insurance companies may cover visits just like they cover like a personal training membership?
I think it could definitely go down that route. Just realizing how much of an impact cryo has made in the last decade since it's been here in the States, it could definitely head that route. Right now, they're actually accepting FSA and HSA spinning cards, so your health spinning accounts and your flex spinning cards. They are abiding by that. So once again, since we are a medical-based facility, we do accept those type of transactions, those ways of making payment. But right now, the insurance isn't touching it. I definitely think they will downstream. Me personally, as a consumer, I could be biased here and there. As a consumer, I'd rather just cash pay a lot of this stuff. As a business owner, I'd rather just accept cash pay when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So when you get into insurance, it really makes things a little muddy. It makes it muddy from the business side, but also from the consumer side. There are several times that I'm on the phone, griping at my insurance company about certain things. So as a consumer and as a business owner, I hope it always stays cash based.
Yeah, I think, and that's why a lot of physical therapy clinics are also moving towards cash based as well, because dealing with the insurance is just, it's never easy and not always fun. So certainly, hopefully a transition, maybe not be in the future, but something that maybe helps some people who want to get cryo and can't afford it, so to speak.
Most definitely.
And you started talking about some other services that you guys provide us. I heard NAD, IV. I guess maybe just go into some of the other services you guys provide.
Yeah, so our core lifestyle services are very simple. We offer whole body cryo, localized cryo, cryofacials. We do compression therapy, so kind of like those compression boots that you'll see at different sporting events. Um, we do infrared saunas. We do dry float. We do photobiomodulation, so light therapy, red light therapy, PBM beds, which we can get into that for hours. I'm a huge light fan. I'll talk about that briefly. But then we have our specialty services. So our lifestyle services are services, they're non-medical use, they're real wellness based. They can be done just across the spectrum of those four categories I spoke about earlier. But those are probably your lower price pointed services. So, if you're coming in to get a lifestyle service, it's probably very convenient. I probably don't need an appointment or a reservation. I'm not going to break the bank spending some money. We wrap all those into our memberships as well, so they're interchangeable services. It's ease of use, right? On our specialty services, these probably need a consultation. These probably need to be set up on a higher tier of pricing. I can expect to get a little bit more out of this as far as what I'm trying to do with certain things. That's going to be our body sculpting. So we offer slimming, we offer toning, we offer facials that are a little bit more, I would say, advantageous than just the generic cryofacial. And then we offer IV infusions. We offer a series of 10 different IVs. And then we offer vitamin shots. So B12 injection, glutathione, vitamin C. And it's interesting when people start talking about the IV infusions, it's the old, I need this in Vegas for a hangover cure or whatever that may be. And to be honest, that is how it started out. The first IV companies were mobile vans in Vegas, treating people with a Myers cocktail for a hangover, whatever.
Yeah.
Putting some Zofran or Toradol in there to help with nausea. And it's amazing how that industry has also evolved at time. We have a series of 9 to 10 different IVs that we offer at each one of our locations. And it's what are you doing it for, right? We have recovery IVs for muscle recovery. We have get up and go IVs, which are there for energy. We have IVs, we have an IV called Alleviate, which is probably our top seller, and it's there to reduce pain and inflammation. So it's interesting to see how cryo and our lifestyle services can be geared towards any different benefit that we're trying to treat or overcome, but also things like IVs. We're now tactical and we're purposeful in the way that we're delivering IVs and vitamins and minerals to the body.
Yeah. And I want to go into the more of the laser stuff, because you seem like you had some interesting points on that. So I guess maybe explain more about that.
So I think you were talking about the light therapy.
A light therapy. Yes.
Yeah. So I've explained to people, I think there's 3 big things that you should be looking at when looking at wellness services. And I lump them into 3 categories: things to do with heat, things to do with cold, and things to do with light. I do hot, cold, and light almost every single day. Those are the 3 categories I commit to. When it comes to light therapy, you talk about photobiomodulation. So photobiomodulation is a crazy way of just saying light, right? And for me, I think it's interesting to see the different spectrums of light. So in some of our infrared saunas, we use chromotherapy. We use different red lights and blue lights and purple lights and yellow lights. Some are good for skin. Some are good for mental clarity. Some are good for pain and inflammation. So you have different spectrums of light that are good for different things. But you also have different penetration lengths. So if you look at if you look at a light bed, if you look at an infrared sauna, you have 3 different wavelengths. You have near infrared, you have far infrared, and you have mid infrared rays. So,
and why would that be important?
So it's important because the depth of penetration inside the body could give a different reaction or a different benefit based on how deep it can penetrate inside of your skin and even past your skin, right? Now, we're not talking 4 inches of depth, right? We're talking millimeters, right?
Yeah.
Funny when I say that, people are like, they start pointing at their stomach, like, can it get way in there? And I'm like, no, we're not talking inches, we're talking millimeters. And so it's interesting to see the penetration lengths inside the body and how that can affect in certain tissues. When you start to get past the subcutaneous fat, a lot of interesting things start to happen. So for me, light therapy is huge. I correlate it to a battery. It's the most simplistic way that I can articulate what's happening to the normal person. So think about every cell in your body is a AA, AAA battery, right? When you wake up, your kids, your work, your workout, you're walking, you're running, you're, got a headache from this, whatever it may be, all of these batteries are getting exhausted through the day, right? And for me, when you look at the process of energy, right, and how the mitochondria, how ATP is formed, the energy component to each cell, well, it's going to come from food, it's going to come from what you drink, but it's also going to come from nature. It's going to come from energy. It's going to come from the sun. It's going to come from things that are provided on Earth to help establish and recharge that battery. So I always explain to people, look, I know you're not eating perfect. I know you're not drinking perfect. So supplement that with some wellness modalities that can help recharge that battery, right? And that's one great thing that light therapy does, is it helps recharge that cell. It helps deliver that process of ATP and bringing the energy component around mitochondria in the cell to power that cell for energy. So I always correlate the battery scenario because people can understand that. But in a sense, light therapy, especially if you get the right bed, there are tons of light beds out there. A lot of them are junk, to be honest. I've only found a couple in the world that actually provide the power that you need inside of a bed. And I think also what people don't understand is our skin is designed to reflect light, not receive it. So if you go in and you have a light panel on one side, it's going to hit your body and the light's going to reflect off somewhere else. You need to put yourself, and this is what I talked about earlier, we do whole body cryo, whole body heat, and whole body light. So our light beds, it encompasses the entire body. It's a big cylinder. It almost looks like a tanning bed in a sense, but that way when the light hits you and it repels off, it's coming right back at you. So it's condensing all that light down into one place. And it's almost forcing the body to absorb more than it naturally would. And then I get the response when I say that, I have people say, well, is there a way for me to consume too much light? Is there a way for that just battery to, burst, right? and I try to remind them, it's like your cell phone. If I were to charge my cell phone at night, I put it on the nightstand, it only takes about an hour for that phone to charge, but the remaining 5, 6, 7 hours of sleep, it's just at 100%. It's not going to hurt my phone. So same thing, it's when you're doing light therapy, if you're designed to do 12 minutes of light and you do 15 minutes one day, it's not going to hurt you. So it's interesting to see, like I said before, I focus on heat. Oops. I focus on heat, light, and cold.
And is doing one more than the other beneficial? Do they all hold equal merit? I guess, I'm assuming because it's ICryo, you're really focusing more on when people come in to focus on the cold therapy. But I guess, is there more added benefit to doing all three? Do they all hold equal merit? Is it like, let's do the heat and the cold first, and then we'll think about the light and go from there? I guess, like, what does the science and data suggest in regards to maybe cold and heat exposure in addition to light?
Yeah, so once again, I think that is also a personalized approach. It's hard to say that everybody's designed for the same thing. So once again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier when I talk about going on a membership for the very first month, because all of our lifestyle services are interchangeable. So I could do on my membership, I could do cryo today, I could do sauna tomorrow, I could do light the next day, right? So it's all wrapped into that same package. I have the ease of use of doing any of those services that I want to. So I always try to remind people, do it as much as the first month as possible so you can see what you get benefits from. Are you getting benefits from cold, or after a cryo session, are you getting a bad reaction, right? Sometimes people, it stimulates them so much that they actually start to get like kind of a headache. It's an overstimulation of the vagus nerve. So maybe heat therapy is something they respond better to. Maybe light therapy is something they respond better to. Maybe doing all three of them in the same day, right? So you're almost beta testing yourself in a sense of that first month of use, figuring out what works best for you. Now, the interesting part is I hate doing that. As a business owner that provides these services, as a PT in my background, personal training, I mean, you don't ever want to say, just guess, right? Or figure it out for yourself. So what we're actually doing, it's really exciting. Our chief formulator for the company, he linked us up with a laboratory in Dallas. We're actually going to start to pull certain DNA strands. So we'll start to do a DNA analysis inside of ICryo. It'll be a cheek swab. We'll send it off to our lab, and we're going to actually test certain DNA strains and SNPs in the body that directly correlate to the benefits that we see from our services and any issues that we could see from our services. So
Wow.
think of it as in Joe Smith walks in ICryo, he does a DNA swab, we send it off to the lab. Results come back in about 14 to 21 days, and that results panel is going to show us what services John Smith needs to do and how many times a week he needs to do it. So based on his DNA, he needs to be doing cryo twice a week. He needs to be doing red light 4 times a week. He needs to be doing infrared sauna on the yellow light, once a month, whatever it may be. So actually having the data from you and your DNA on what services you should be doing and how often you should be doing them.
I think that's, revolutionary to some point. I mean, I had a conversation with someone who was, studies genomics, and the personalization of individuals is going to be the future. I mean, it's just no doubt about it. And the fact that you guys are taking the early steps to try and figure out, like, who is this individual, what do they need, and how do we move forward? I think it's really going to make you guys stand out from other companies and allow for individuals to feel better and also keep coming back and using your services. Because if it's personalized to the individual by each DNA strand, I mean, why wouldn't you use it?
Exactly. We live in a personalized society. I mean, I remember back in the day, we used to go to Blockbuster to get videos, and now everybody's got their own customized playlist on Netflix for videos and movies. And, I remember having CDs and cassette players for music, and now everybody's got iTunes. It's a customized music playlist. So we customize everything in our lives, and every industry is moving towards personalization. So why should the wellness industry not be the same way?
And are you doing the same thing with those IVs as well?
We do. So once again, being able to tailor an IV specific to the person. So not only just taking our 10 standard IVs and saying, okay, let's be tactical in what we're doing, but taking that DNA report and seeing what they're naturally deficient in, right? What are some nutrients that they need, and we can deliver a customized IV for that person. So if Joe Smith does his DNA report at ICryo in Dallas, we get his report back, we put it in the system. Obviously, our systems are HIPAA compliant for safety reasons. But let's say he travels to iCryo in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that registered nurse can pull up his actual profile and give him his customized IV in Florida. So it's going to be interesting to see when we go down this DNA approach, when we go down this route of customization, how thorough it's going to get from the person, from the guest perspective of knowing that I'm getting everything that I need, and this person across the table isn't just selling me something to make a dollar.
I think that's great. I think that's something it's going to be huge. And I think it's going to be something that people are going to keep looking out for. And I guess, where are all your locations? I mean, you talk about Texas, and I saw there's other locations, but I guess, like, what cities generally, where can people find you guys?
Yeah, so we're blowing up really fast. I never thought I would get to this point if you would have told me this a few years ago. In 2017, we started franchising. We only had a couple locations in Houston. I thought I was just going to personally own, 5 or 6, and then the business model kind of took off. We've got locations in New York, Connecticut, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana, Ohio. We're in about 7 different states right now, actively open. We've sold over 225 locations across the country that are kind of in phases of development, construction, lease negotiation, stuff like that. We'll open our first few centers on the West Coast this year in California and Arizona. So my goal is to be within a 30-minute drive of everybody in the United States. So we've actually mapped out the entire U.S. We've mapped out every state and city. We're projected to do just over 1,000 locations here in the States over the next 5 to 10 years. So you'll see an iCryo somewhere around you very soon.
Well, I'm very excited for when it comes to how in your California. I'm excited for that to happen. And I guess, as a business owner and just as an individual, I guess, what's been the biggest surprise to you in the way that you've just changed in regards to just, like, going through this whole experience of figuring out you didn't want to do PT and you wanted to work in this realm of business and building a franchise and all that? I guess, like, what are some key takeaways that you found that are important to you?
Well, I think for me, it's listen to yourself, but also listen to the people around you. That's one thing that I'm glad I did early on. I encourage everybody to have some type of a mentor or somebody that they go to for certain things. It could be financial, it could be personal, it could be relational, it could be spiritual, whatever it may be. you need an outsider's perspective on kind of where you're headed in life. And I've been fortunate enough to have some great mentors in my life, and all the changes that I've made, I've always leaned on them for that. So when I was, in high school looking to go to a specific college, my dad was one of my mentors in high school, and he helped me select the right route. I mean, did I bitch and moan and complain about the route that I took? Yes, I did. But then after I did it, I thanked him for it. I was like, man, you're right. That's exactly what I should have done. Same thing in college, going from football and coming back and transitioning into exercise science. I mean, my quarterbacks coach at my college, he's the one that kind of helped push me towards, hey, Kyle, you're a good athlete, but you're not a great athlete. Like, you're not making it to the pros. You've got something else in health and wellness that I think you're going to be destined for. And I had to swallow that as an 18-year-old kid that thinks he's going pro.
What a punch to the gut.
I know, right? It crushed me. But at the end of the day, he knew he was looking out for my best interest. And I did. I listened to him. And once again, going from exercise science and thinking I'm going to be the gym owner person. I mean, I was looking at Anytime Fitnesses to purchase the franchise, and transitioning into one of my professors helping me realize, like, hey, you're destined for like rehab. You love the BT and the exercise science and the biomechanics of the body, and listening to some of my professors that were mentors. So that I once again switched gears and I followed some of what my mentors were telling me. So I think, I've always told young individuals, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're looking to just work in the working world, lean on people for assistance. And you'll know there's definitely been some people in my life that have tried to be mentors. And in your gut, you're just like, this just doesn't feel right. And so it's a balance of listening to the people around you, but also listening to your gut and your instinct of saying, you know what, I don't know about that. That doesn't feel right. So it's tough sometimes, right? You think, am I making the right decision? Am I listening to the right person? So it is definitely tough, but I think at the end of the day, you have to lean for some outside help. But then again, you do also have to listen to your intuition.
Certainly. I think that's great advice. And I guess what's next for you guys? I know you guys are expanding, and I guess, like, what are some personal goals for you just moving in the future?
I think for me, it's building people. It always has been. I've had the pleasure of mentoring some younger people in my life. I've had the pleasure of doing speaking engagements and really pouring into people. And when it comes down to it, ICryo is a platform to build people. I never wanted the company to just be viewed as a company, right? I want it to be viewed as a platform to help others. So whether it's a platform to help others in our services with health, whether it's a platform for our franchisees to build jobs for people and to open locations and build this economy from a small business standpoint, or whether it's me pouring into my corporate team on education and, personal development, whatever it may be. I mean, we do a little bit different when we go through a hiring process, and this is all the way down to the entry-level person to our execs in the company. We do a lot of coaching. So coaching approach, and you'll find that in our mission statement and our culture. We do a lot of a coaching approach, mentorship, personal development. That's huge within our brand guidelines. So I never wanted to feel like I was that boss, that was just, you do this, do that, do this, do that. You're terrible. You're horrible. When somebody does something wrong, mistakes are what lead to success. Mistakes are what lead to finding the answer. So addressing that, getting the person to realize, hey, we all make mistakes, but hey, now what's the solution? How do we do it right? Coaching these people and giving them support along the way.
I think that's admirable. I think it's a sign of a good leader, and I'm excited for ICryo and the future of you guys. We're winding down to the end here, and I just got a few more questions to ask you, and it's just the portion of the podcast I like to call the health me to health you. And so the first question is, and this is going to be off the cuff, first question is, if you had the attention of everyone in the world for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
If I had the attention from every person in the world for 30 seconds, what would I say? Honestly, man, this is going to seem it's kind of deep. I would probably preach something along the lines of love, self-love and loving others. So if I could rattle it off in 30 seconds, I would tell people, love the people around you, love them for who they are, but also love yourself first. I always explain to people, you can't help other people until you help yourself first. Self-love is so important. It's important for you, it's important for your growth, and it's important for the people that rely on you. And so that would be my short, sweet way of saying it. But I want to go off by saying one additional thing that it always hits me in the head. And when you said that, I was thinking about it. I remember talking to this older individual several years ago. He's an older guy, very unhealthy, hospital here and there, having a ton of problems. And I told him, and I won't mention his name. I said, hey, I'll call him Joe. I said, hey, Joe, when are you going to straighten up? When are you going to get your act together? I remember him telling me, he said, Kyle, I'm not afraid of dying. If it's my time, it's my time. And I told him, I said, look, Joe, I said, you have a daughter, don't you? And he said, yeah. And I said, don't live for you, live for her. I said, live to walk her down the aisle when she's married. Live so that you can guide her through life and you don't leave her stranded as a 16-year-old, teenager that needs mentorship in life. Live for the people that rely on you the most. Don't live for yourself. That's the selfish way of thinking. So for me, I've always preached health, wellness, personal development, so you can be the best version for other people.
And hopefully maybe a ICryo session will spark that and hopefully get people to start caring about themselves a little bit more. And I think that's been one of the better ones since. So good job.
Yes.
Second question. What book do you recommend, whether you've read in the past or currently, that do you recommend?
Oh, I'm a big John Maxwell fan. Honestly, it would be very, very difficult for me to pick one book from John Maxwell. I like his Laws of Leadership book. I think that there's just so many things that in my mind can come from it. I understand John Maxwell. He's definitely a very influential person in this world, and you could get things from different sides from him. But I'm a big believer in leadership and leading the right way. So leading by permission, not leading by position, right? Just because you're the boss doesn't mean that people want to give you the acceptance to let you lead them. A true leader gets permission from others to let them lead, right? They get that authority by others to let them do that. So John Maxwell, he preaches that a lot in his leadership books. So if I were to say to look for books, John Maxwell has a few leadership books out there. I would definitely dig into those.
Good recommendation. I agree. And last question, where can people more learn about you guys and ICryo, and where to expect you guys next?
Yeah, so expect us everywhere.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you can find us. We're very active on social media, Instagram, Facebook, just at ICryo, ICryo. Same thing for the website, iCryo.com, ICryo.com. Feel free to submit questions or comments or anything. Like I said, we're very engaged with people in the outside of the world there, not just in different cities, but states, different countries. ICryo will be a global company. We've already solidified our first international contract. I can't say.
Congrats.
Yeah, I can't say anything about it now, but we'll see it in a press release.
Nice.
Yeah, so being international and touching as many people across the globe as we can.
Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, man. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to see more iCryos around the country, and congrats on all your success and everything moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.